Before we dive into the story, leave a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Enjoy. Khalil al-Rashid didn't tolerate mistakes. At 35, he had transformed his father's modest oil firm into a global empire headquartered in New York. His features were sharp, his beard trimmed to perfection, and his dark eyes rarely betrayed anything beyond icy determination. "You're fired," he said flatly to his current Arabic translator, a grey-haired man who had mistranslated a vital line in a $50 million contract. "Pack up. You've got 15 minutes. It was his fifth translator in half a year. That same morning, Khalil's assistant, Hassan, called. "Sir, we've found a strong candidate. She's a translator finishing her master's at Columbia in Middle Eastern Studies, speaks fluent Arabic, excellent recommendations." "Bring her in, today," Khalil instructed. Meanwhile, Lucy Mitchell was having a rough morning. She dashed through Manhattan's rush hour with a paper cup of cheap coffee in one hand, books and a resume in the other. At 25, she was as brilliant as she was unorganized, her red curls constantly escaping any attempt at neatness. As she entered the sleek Al-Rashid International building, disaster struck. Coffee splashed across her only good blouse. "Fantastic," she muttered, blotting the stain with a napkin. She arrived 5 minutes late, the elevator doors opening directly onto the top floor's glossy reception. An impeccably dressed man greeted her with a frown. "Miss Mitchell, Mr. Al-Rashid has no tolerance for tardiness." Before she could explain, a tall man stepped from the conference room. He scanned the stain on her blouse, her wild hair, and then met her eyes. "You're the linguist from Columbia?" he asked with a faint accent. "Yes, sir. Lucy Mitchell. I'm sorry, She gestured to her blouse. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Follow me. You have 5 minutes to convince me you're not wasting my time." His office was sleek, dominated by glass and metal. He didn't offer her a seat. "Your resume claims you're fluent in Arabic. Prove it." Without hesitation, Lucy replied in perfect Arabic. "My grandfather spoke the language daily. He taught me not just the words, but the heart behind them." His eyebrows lifted, the first sign of approval. Switching to Arabic, he began quizzing her in complex dialects and rare literary references. She not only answered correctly, she corrected one of his quotes. "You corrected me," he said, switching back to English. "My apologies," Lucy said, realizing the mistake. "No," he replied. "You were right. Al-Mutanabi wrote that poem in exile." He finally gestured to a chair. "Sit." As he skimmed her resume, Lucy took in the stark decor. No family photos, just awards and expensive abstract art. "Why do you want this job, Miss Mitchell? A Columbia graduate could aim higher." She hesitated, then chose honesty. "I need the money. I have student loans, sky-high rent, and a thesis to finish. Your salary offer could change everything. And if I told you the position requires full-time availability with international travel and short notice?" Lucy didn't blink. "I'd ask when I start." He allowed himself a hint of a smile. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Don't be late." As he stood, he added, "Hassan will go over your contract and buy a few extra blouses. Accidents happen." Out on the street, Lucy practically danced with excitement. She called her best friend Zoe. "I got the job. I'm going to be a billionaire's personal translator." That serious-looking Al-Rashid guy from Forbes. Incredibly rich and incredibly boring. "He's not boring, he's intense," Lucy insisted. "Well, that calls for dinner at my place tonight." As Lucy made her way home, for the first time in ages, it felt like her life was turning around. What she didn't know was that at that very moment, her new employer was ordering a full background check on her. The next morning, Lucy arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a brand new suit that had devoured the rest of her coffee shop paycheck. She'd stayed up most of the night researching Al Rashid International and its mysterious CEO. Hassan greeted her with a rare approving nod. "Mr. Al Rashid is on a call. I'll show you to your workspace." To Lucy's shock, her workspace was a private office next to Khalil's. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a top-tier computer, shelves lined with dictionaries and even a plush couch. "This is mine?" she asked, stunned. "Mr. Al-Rashid believes in providing the proper environment for excellence," Hassan replied, handing her a sleek smartphone. "Company phone. He may contact you at any time. He doesn't sleep much." He handed her a black corporate credit card. "For professional expenses, including wardrobe." Lucy raised an eyebrow. "This is dangerously tempting." "Mr. Al-Rashid values discretion. I advise reflecting that in your spending." Just then, Khalil emerged from his office, speaking rapid Arabic into his phone. He paused briefly to nod at Lucy, then returned to his call. Despite his stoic demeanor, Lucy couldn't help but notice he was, objectively, very attractive, confident, composed, maddeningly unreadable. "Miss Mitchell," Khalil said as he ended the call, "come with me. We have a meeting with Saudi investors in 20 minutes. "Shouldn't there be some sort of orientation first?" she asked. "This is your orientation," he replied, already heading toward the elevator. "Stay close. Translate accurately. Don't speak unless prompted." In the elevator, he glanced at her suit, an improvement over yesterday's blouse. "Thanks, I think," she replied, unsure if it was a compliment. "Observation," he clarified. "First lesson? Appearance matters as much as substance in international business. With respect, I was hired for my linguistic skills, not my fashion sense." He looked at her, genuinely taken aback by her boldness. "Interesting. My previous translators never talked back." "And where are they now?" Lucy asked dryly. A ghost of a smile flickered. "Good point." The meeting was tense. The investors, traditional and formal, were visibly uneasy with Lucy's presence. Sensing this, Khalil introduced her with surprising respect. "Miss Mitchell is a scholar from Columbia, fluent in 7 dialects of Arabic and an expert in classical literature." Lucy nearly choked at the exaggeration, but kept a straight face. For 2 hours, she translated flawlessly: financials, legalities, cultural references. When one investor made a sexist remark in a rare dialect, assuming she wouldn't understand, she translated it word for word, tone perfectly neutral. Khalil replied with a sharp remark in the same dialect. The investor paled and muttered an apology. Back in the car, Lucy braced herself for backlash, but Khalil instead said, "You have a photographic memory." "I just have a head for languages and numbers," she shrugged. He looked out the window. "Do you have plans tonight?" "Yes," she said, caught off guard. "Cancel them. Dinner with our legal team. 8 p.m. With respect, it's nearly 6. I have personal commitments." "Your contract requires full availability," he said flatly. Lucy bit her tongue. She needed this job. "Understood." Back at the office, she called Zoe to cancel dinner. "This is crazy," she vented. "He expects me to give up my life." "At least he's good-looking," Zoe teased. "That's irrelevant." "Oh, so he is good-looking." "Stop it. He's my boss, an emotionally unavailable one." Just then, Lucy noticed Khalil standing in the doorway. "I have to go," she whispered, wondering how much he'd heard. He didn't comment. "The lawyers are here. Let's go." Dinner was formal, yet Lucy noticed something different. Around others, Khalil was surprisingly charismatic, even charming. Occasionally, his eyes drifted toward her, not cold, but assessing. After a glass or two of wine, Lucy relaxed. When the conversation shifted to literature, she spoke passionately about Arabic poetry, even quoting verses. Khalil seemed genuinely impressed. Where did you learn that? He asked during a quiet moment. My grandfather was a literature professor. He taught me Arabic. Your surname isn't Arabic. Number my grandfather was Lebanese on my mother's side. Khalil filed that away, expression unreadable. Interesting. Full of surprises, Miss Mitchell. By the time her car dropped her off in Brooklyn, Lucy was exhausted, yet oddly exhilarated. The job was intense. The boss, infuriating. But for the first time in ages, she felt awake. She didn't notice the black car that stayed parked after she went inside, or the man inside taking notes about where she lived. 3 weeks into her new role, Lucy had fallen into the whirlwind rhythm of Khalil's world. Her days began before sunrise and often stretched into the early hours of the next morning. She missed her thesis deadlines, barely saw her friends, and her apartment began to feel like a forgotten storage unit. You're giving up your life for this job, Zoe said during a rare lunch. You've disappeared. It's worth it, Lucy replied, glancing at her phone for the third time in 5 minutes. And it's temporary. Once I pay off my loans, if you survive that long, you look like you haven't slept in days. Lucy didn't argue. There was something strangely magnetic about working for Khalil. He was demanding, brilliant, always a step ahead, and occasionally, when he didn't think anyone was looking, almost human. Last week, she'd seen him discreetly slip money to an elderly janitor, looking visibly uncomfortable when the man thanked him. Another time, he chuckled at a meme on his phone, only to snap back into his stony expression when he realized she was watching. Earth to Lucy, Zoe snapped. You're thinking about him again. I'm thinking about work, Lucy corrected. Sure, Zoe smirked. Work that just happens to look like a billionaire with perfect cheekbones. He's my boss. So? That man clearly needs someone to make him smile. And you, my workaholic friend, need to get out of that office. Just then, Lucy's phone rang. Miss Mitchell, Hassan said, Mr. Al-Rashid requires your presence immediately. The jet is being prepared. Jet? Lucy blinked. Where? Dubai. Departure in 3 hours. She hung up and looked at Zoe helplessly. I have to go. I guess I'm heading to Dubai. Zoe threw her arms up. At least promise me you'll buy something luxurious while you're there. I'll be working, Lucy said, already gathering her things. 2 hours later, she was at the airport with a hastily packed bag, trying to calm her nerves. She'd never been on a private jet, let alone flown internationally on such short notice. Khalil was already on board when she arrived, immaculately dressed despite the impending 14-hour flight. First time on a private jet? He asked, noticing her awestruck expression. That obvious? You're looking around like a child in a candy store. Lucy blushed. It's impressive. It's efficient, he corrected, returning to a stack of documents. We'll work in flight. I need these contracts translated and the key terms memorized. The next few hours were a blur of legal language and high-pressure focus. Eventually, when Lucy could barely keep her eyes open, Khalil closed his laptop. Get some rest, he said. We need to be sharp when we land. You should take your own advice, she murmured, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. When's the last time you slept? He looked surprised. Sleep is a luxury when building an empire. Even emperors need sleep, she mumbled, already dozing off. Hours later, she awoke to find a blanket draped over her. Across from her, Khalil was asleep, his features relaxed and younger looking without his usual intensity. For a moment, she just watched him, then looked away quickly. As the jet descended into Dubai, she gazed out the window in awe. The city glittered like a mirage rising from the desert. First time in Dubai too, I assume, Khalil asked. It's stunning. Wait until you see it up close, he replied, and, for a brief second, he almost looked excited to show it to her. We meet with investors tomorrow. Tonight there's a charity gala. I didn't bring anything for that kind of event, Lucy protested. It's handled, Khalil said casually. A stylist will meet you at the hotel. Do you always plan this far ahead? He allowed a rare smile. Always. What Lucy didn't realize was that her carefully constructed present was about to collide with a past she never knew existed. And not even Khalil al-Rashid, master planner that he was, could predict what came next. The hotel in Dubai was nothing short of spectacular. Khalil had booked a presidential suite for himself and an adjacent room for Lucy. Awaiting her was a stylist with a rack of evening gowns that likely cost more than her annual rent. Mr. Al-Rashid requested shades of green and blue, the stylist explained, to match your eyes. Lucy flushed. He had noticed the colour of her eyes. She chose a conservative emerald dress, elegant but understated. When she finally looked at herself in the mirror, styled and polished, she barely recognised the woman staring back. Downstairs, Khalil stood in the lobby, speaking quickly in Arabic. When he saw her, he paused mid-sentence. His eyes widened slightly before he masked the reaction. I'll call you back, he said into the phone. You look appropriate for the event, he said. Lucy laughed. That's probably the flattest compliment I've ever received. A hint of red touched his cheeks, something she'd never seen before. I meant you look stunning, he corrected, as if surprised by his own words. On the way to the gala, Khalil explained, tonight is as much about building relationships as it is about charity. Many of the investors we meet tomorrow will be there. And my role, you're my companion tonight. Your companion? Lucy raised an eyebrow. In this region, appearing alone at such events can be interpreted as instability. You're fluent, well-read, and aware of cultural nuance. That makes you more than just a prop. The event was held in a former palace overlooking the Persian Gulf. Inside, the opulence was overwhelming. Lucy stayed close to Khalil, translating when needed, smiling politely through endless handshakes. To her surprise, Khalil introduced her with sincere respect. This is Miss Mitchell, my cultural and linguistic advisor. Her academic work on Arabic literature is groundbreaking. Lucy nearly choked. You really should stop exaggerating. I haven't even finished my thesis. I'm not exaggerating. I read your draft, he said casually. Lucy's eyes widened. You what? Hassan got it from your advisor. That's a violation of privacy. It's called due diligence, he replied smoothly. I only hire the best. Before she could respond, an older man approached them. His warm smile lit up his face. Khalil, my boy, he exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. Uncle Farid, Khalil said, genuine affection in his voice. And who is this charming young lady? The man asked. My translator and advisor, Lucy Mitchell, Khalil replied. Farid's eyes narrowed slightly at her name, but quickly softened. Mitchell, a pleasure, my dear. As they spoke, Farid's attention to Lucy became more focused, especially when she mentioned her grandfather. Later in the evening, after Khalil was drawn into another conversation, Farid reappeared at Lucy's side. Tell me, Lucy, was your maternal grandfather named Ibrahim? She blinked. Yes. Ibrahim Nassar. Did you know him? Farid smiled, almost wistfully. The world is smaller than we think. He was a remarkable man. Before she could ask more, someone called him away. The rest of the night passed in a blur of multilingual conversations, dazzling lights, and polite laughter. Lucy watched Khalil move through the room with ease, laughing, charming, commanding, so different from the cold executive at the office. Around midnight, she found him on a quiet balcony overlooking the city. Can we leave soon? She asked, yawning. I'm practically asleep standing up. He glanced at her, his features soft in the low light. Just a few more minutes. There's something I want to show you. He led her to a private rooftop garden with a breathtaking view of Dubai. The city shimmered like a dream. I've been coming here for 20 years, Khalil said, and it still feels like a miracle, this city rising from sand through ambition and vision. Lucy watched him silently. Can I ask you something personal? He hesitated, then nodded. Why do you work so hard? You have more than enough money. Khalil stared at the skyline. My father started with nothing. When he passed, I vowed to build something lasting, something that would outlive me. And that kind of legacy demands sacrifice. He gave a tired smile. Some things have to be given up for greatness. And is it worth it? His eyes met hers. That's what I'm trying to figure out. The moment was broken by Hassan's discreet appearance. Sir, your call with New York is in 5 minutes. On the drive back to the hotel, Lucy sat in thoughtful silence. Something had changed between them tonight. A barrier, long present, seemed to have quietly slipped away. At her door, Khalil paused. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be intense. Thank you, she said softly. Tonight was unexpectedly nice. A small smile touched his lips. Good night, Lucy. It was the first time he'd used her first name, and something about the way he said it sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. Inside her room, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just business anymore. The next day tested Lucy in every possible way. 8 hours straight of high-level negotiations, 3 different Arabic dialects, and barely a moment to breathe. Khalil was sharp and focused, commanding the room with quiet authority. Lucy, translating flawlessly, worked like a machine. By the time they returned to the hotel, her head throbbed from mental exhaustion. You were outstanding today, Khalil said, as they stepped into the elevator. Lucy blinked in surprise. Thank you, but I think my brain's officially melted. Headache? She nodded. He pressed the button for her floor, then added the penthouse level. Where are we going? She asked. You need quiet and fresh air. The penthouse's private terrace held a stunning infinity pool, glowing in the soft light of sunset. No one else was around. I reserved it, Khalil said, loosening his tie. Sit. Lucy sank into a lounge chair. To her shock, he knelt beside her and placed his fingertips on her temples, moving them in slow, circular motions. What are you doing? She asked, frozen. A pressure technique my mother taught me. She was a doctor. Slowly, the tension began to drain from her body. The pain ebbed. You don't talk about your family much, Lucy said quietly. There's rarely time for personal conversations. And this? She asked, eyes closed. This isn't work. He paused but didn't pull away. Number, I suppose it's not. For a few peaceful minutes, they sat in silence, the rhythm of his hands easing her headache. My mother died when I was 12, he said suddenly. Cancer. My father threw himself into work. I learned that from him. I'm sorry. He shrugged, trying to be nonchalant, but the vulnerability had already peeked through. It was a long time ago. Still, losing someone you love leaves a mark. Khalil pulled away, slipping back into his usual self. Feeling better? Much, thank you. We'll have dinner in an hour. Uncle Fared will join us. Lucy sat up straighter. He seemed to know my grandfather. Isn't that strange? Something flickered across Khalil's face. The international business world is small. Coincidences happen. But his tone was a little too carefully neutral. Dinner was held in an upscale restaurant atop a glittering skyscraper. Fared was already waiting, his warm smile lighting up as they arrived. My dear Lucy, he greeted, kissing her hands. So happy you could join us. Over the meal, Faird entertained them with stories about Khalil as a boy, always serious, always planning. At 10 years old, he pitched me a strategy to expand my taxi fleet, and it worked. Khalil allowed himself a rare smile. It was a good strategy. An excellent one. I used it, Farid replied proudly. He turned to Lucy. And you, what drew you to Arabic literature? My grandfather, she answered. He taught me to love the language. Ibrahim Nassar, Farid repeated, as though savouring the name. A remarkable man. Lucy leaned forward. You really knew him, didn't you? Farid glanced at Khalil, who subtly shook his head. Academic circles. Many years ago. It wasn't a satisfying answer. Later, when they said goodbye, Farid held Lucy's hands longer than expected. You have his eyes, he said softly. The same eyes that look beyond what they see. On the drive back to the hotel, Lucy was pensive. Your uncle's hiding something, she said. The way he reacted to my name, the questions. He knew my grandfather well. Khalil kept his eyes on the city lights. Faird enjoys mystery. Don't read too much into it. It's more than that. I can feel it. He didn't reply, but she noticed his jaw was tense. At her door, he said, We're flying back to New York tomorrow, 10 a.m. Carl, she called softly, the first time she'd used his first name. Is there something you're not telling me? He paused, back turned, shoulders stiff beneath his tailored jacket. For a moment, she thought he might answer. Then he said simply, Good night, Lucy, and walked away. That night, Lucy dreamt of her grandfather. He sat at his old desk, surrounded by books, telling her stories in Arabic, about two young business partners whose paths had diverged because of betrayal. She woke with a sense that something important was just out of reach. Back in New York, life resumed at full throttle. Meetings, translations, endless emails. But something had shifted. Khalil was distant, professionally courteous, but never alone with Lucy. Tasks were now relayed through Hassan. Eye contact was brief. Conversations, formal. After a week of this silent treatment, Lucy had had enough. During a frustrating morning reviewing dense legal documents, she stormed into his office and shut the door behind her. Did I do something wrong? She demanded. You've barely spoken to me since Dubai. Khalil looked up, genuinely surprised. No. Then what is it? He rubbed his forehead, a rare show of tension. I'm dealing with personal matters. Does it have anything to do with my grandfather and your uncle? The question caught him off guard. Why do you think that? I'm not just a translator, Lucy said, folding her arms. I read people. Something changed after that dinner. He stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city. Some stories aren't mine to tell. If they involve my family, I have the right to know. Khalil turned, inner conflict visible on his face. I need time. Please trust me. You'll understand when the time is right. Lucy wanted to push further, but something in his expression stopped her. Fine, she said quietly. But stop avoiding me. That's what hurts most. Her honesty hit him visibly. I never intended to hurt you. You are... He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. A valuable colleague. Lucy gave a humourless laugh. Valuable colleague. Wow, you really know how to make a girl feel special. A reluctant smile appeared. You know what I mean? Actually, I don't. Some days I feel like we're closer, like there's more. And then you build that wall again. He was silent for a long moment. I have a trip to Boston next week, he said finally. I'd like you to come. Boston? Why? Business, but also because there's someone there you should meet. Who? An old partner of your grandfather. Lucy's heart skipped. You've been looking into him. Looking into is a strong word, Khalil said. Let's just say, I'm trying to understand the past. That's incredibly intrusive. Yes, he admitted to her surprise. But necessary. Are you asking me to come? I am. She crossed her arms. You're lucky I'm curious. The next morning, Lucy found an envelope on her desk. Inside was an old black and white photo of two young men standing in front of a modest storefront. She recognized one immediately. Her grandfather. The other looked like a much younger Fared. On the back was written, in faded Arabic, Ibrahim and Fared, Nassar and Al-Zahawi Imports, 1958. There was no note, no explanation. When Lucy asked about Khalil, Hassan informed her he'd be in meetings all day. That week blurred into research and restlessness. She dove into every record she could find. Her grandfather had rarely spoken of life before Boston. Her mother knew almost nothing, only that he'd worked in imports before becoming a professor. The night before their trip, Lucy was still in the office, buried in notes, when Khalil appeared in her doorway. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled. He looked tired, but unguarded. You should get some rest. We leave early. Says the man who lives here, she replied, closing her notebook. He walked in and sat across from her. Did you like the photo? Thank you for it. You left it for me, didn't you? He nodded. I found it among Fared's files. Why didn't you just tell me the truth about their connection? Because it's complicated. He rubbed his face, something in his demeanor shifting. There's a shared history between our families. I only discovered it recently. It's sensitive. A trace of worry passed through Lucy. Is it bad? Did my grandfather do something wrong? No, Khalil said quickly. Ibrahim Nassar was an honorable man. It's more about lost legacies and healing. He stood, then hesitated at the door. Lucy. Yes? I'm sorry I've been distant. It's not you. Then what is it? He searched for the words. The truth is, the problem is how much I enjoy being around you. And then, before she could speak, he was gone, leaving behind more questions than ever. Boston in autumn was a painting come to life. Crimson leaves, crisp air, golden light. Khalil's jet landed on a cool Thursday morning, and as they drove from the airport, Lucy stared out the window, lost in memory. It's strange being back, she said. I spent so much time here as a kid, visiting my grandfather. Where did he live? Cambridge, near Harvard. His house was always filled with books, and the smell of cardamom tea. Khalil listened closely. You loved him deeply. He raised me after my parents died in a car crash. I was 8. He was my anchor until he passed 5 years ago. Khalil looked over, softened by the weight of her words. I didn't know about your parents. I'm sorry. She gave a small shrug, though her eyes betrayed the hurt. It was a long time ago. Still, he said quietly, echoing her words from Dubai. Losing someone we love leaves a mark. They shared a glance, brief but full of silent understanding. Their hotel in Beacon Hill was elegant and old world. Khalil had business meetings scheduled later, leaving the morning free. Would you like to visit some of the places you remember? He asked over breakfast. She blinked in surprise. You're offering a break from business? He smiled faintly. Even emperors take breaks sometimes. So they walked the streets of Cambridge together. Lucy showed him the campus, the Arabic bookstore her grandfather loved, the cafe they used to visit every Sunday. To her surprise, Khalil was genuinely interested, asking questions, smiling at her stories. He laughed more than she'd ever seen, and the harsh edges around him seemed to soften. At the cafe, Khalil ordered Arabic coffee. He always came here, Lucy said. He knew the original owner, a Lebanese immigrant like himself. As if summoned by memory, An elderly man approached their table. "Excuse me," he said, eyes wide. "Are you Ibrahim's granddaughter?" Lucy turned, stunned. "Yes, I'm Lucy." The man smiled with wonder. "Little Lucy, the last time I saw you, you were barely to my waist." He turned to Khalil. "And you, Farid's boy?" Khalil's eyebrows rose. "Farid is my uncle by affection. I'm Khalil al-Rashid." "Ah," the man nodded. "Well, it's an honor to see the next generation. Nassar and al-Zahawi, they were legends. Without them, many of us wouldn't be here." After the man left, Lucy looked at Khalil. "I think it's time for answers." He checked his watch. "Our meeting's in an hour. I promise you, everything will be explained." "No more riddles, Khalil. I'm tired of feeling like the last to know." "I understand," he said quietly. "Just a little longer." The meeting took place in an elegant house on Louisburg Square. A butler led them into a grand library, floor-to-ceiling books, leather chairs, a fireplace crackling despite the mild day. Inside, Farid was waiting. "You didn't tell me your uncle would be here," Lucy whispered. "Because he is the meeting," Khalil murmured. Farid rose with a warm smile. "My dear Lucy, thank you for coming. I know you must be full of questions." He led them to a large painting above the fireplace. Lucy gasped. Her grandfather, much younger, stood beside a smiling Farid. "This house," Farid began, "was the first headquarters of Nassar and al-Zahawi Imports, founded in 1958 by your grandfather and me." Lucy was stunned. He never mentioned a business, not once. Farid sat slowly, visibly aged by the memories. "We were more than partners. We were like brothers. We fled Lebanon with nothing but ambition. Together, we built a successful import business. We helped many immigrants find their footing in America." "So, what happened?" Lucy asked. "In 1963, we disagreed. I wanted to expand into oil. Ibrahim preferred traditional imports. We fought. Words, accusations, and something more personal." He looked at her gently. "I had fallen in love with his sister, your great aunt, Amamira." Lucy frowned. "I've never heard that name." "She died young, heart condition. Ibrahim blamed me for her stress. After she passed, we fell apart. He sold his share, went into academia. I tried to find him for decades, but he refused contact." Farid turned to Khalil. "Eventually, Al-Rashid International absorbed what remained of the company. Khalil's father married my niece. The legacy shifted hands." Lucy stared at them both, the weight of the revelation sinking in. "So, half of this company began with my grandfather." "Yes," Khalil confirmed. "But he walked away. It was never claimed." Farid moved to an old desk and returned with a leather folder. "This is the original agreement, handwritten by your grandfather. It's not legally binding now, but morally." Inside was a yellowed page in Arabic, declaring that the company would always belong equally to both families. "When I learned who you were," Farid said, "I asked Khalil to find you." Lucy turned to him. "So that's why you hired me, not because of my skills." Khalil didn't deny it. "At first, yes. But I soon realized your talent was real." Lucy's voice trembled. "So I was a pawn, a tool for repairing some corporate bloodline." "No," Khalil said firmly. "Yes, the search began that way. But everything changed the day you walked into my office. You kept all of this from me, dug into my past, lied. Farid stepped in. I take responsibility. We needed to be sure that you were who we hoped, and that you were worthy of the legacy." "Worthy?" Lucy laughed bitterly. "Who decides that?" "Lucy," Khalil said, stepping closer. "I never meant to hurt you. What began as obligation became something else, something personal." "Then say it," she challenged. "What did it become?" But he said nothing. "Thought so," she whispered, grabbing her bag. I need some air. She walked out, ignoring their voices calling after her. Outside in the city she once called home, Lucy felt completely lost. Lucy wandered the streets of Cambridge for hours, her thoughts racing. Her grandfather's hidden past, Khalil's silence, Farid's guilt. It was all too much. Eventually, she found herself in front of her grandfather's old house, now lived in by strangers. She sat across the street on a bench, staring at the window that once glowed with warm light. "I figured I might find you here," said a familiar voice. She didn't look up. "How did you know?" "Sometimes we return to the places that feel like home," Khalil said gently, taking a seat beside her. She stayed silent. "Can I explain?" he asked after a moment. "What is there to explain?" she said bitterly. "You hired me under false pretenses." "Yes and no. When Farid told me who you were, I only meant to confirm it. Maybe offer compensation for your grandfather's lost share. It was business." "And when did that change?" He smiled faintly. "The moment you corrected my Arabic quote with coffee on your shirt." She gave a short laugh in disbelief. "I broke all my rules for you, Lucy. First as a translator. Then," he hesitated. "More than that." She turned toward him. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth sooner?" "I was afraid. Afraid you'd walk away before I had the chance to know you. The real you." His voice softened. "The one who volunteers teaching refugees, who cared for her grandfather through his illness, who still finds beauty in poetry." Her anger began to melt under the weight of his sincerity. "What does Farid want from me now?" she asked. "Redemption. A chance to set things right. And you?" "What do you want?" Khalil looked at her, honesty in every line of his face. "At first, I wanted to protect the company. But now, I just want to earn back your trust." They sat in silence, the wind rustling the leaves. "My grandfather never told us any of this," Lucy finally said. "Not about Farid, not the company, not Amamira." "Some pain runs too deep to speak aloud," Khalil replied. "I think he was trying to protect you." Lucy sighed. "He always said the past should inform the present, but never control it." "He was right," Khalil said. "So what now?" "If I go back to talk to Farid," she said slowly, "it doesn't mean I forgive how this happened. I understand. And I'm still unsure what to do with all of this inheritance talk." "No one's pressuring you," he said gently. "Just listen. That's all." She nodded, slowly. "All right." Back at Farid's house, the elderly man looked like he'd aged in the few hours they'd been gone. But when he saw them return together, his face lit up with hope. "I thought I'd lost my chance to explain." Lucy sat, her voice calmer now. "I'm listening." Farid spoke of youth and friendship, of building something with her grandfather, of falling in love with Amamira and losing both her and the brotherhood he cherished. "She was the one," he said, eyes moist, "and I failed her, and Ibrahim." He explained how, over the years, he funneled the money quietly to help Ibrahim, using lawyers to mask its source. "He never accepted help," Lucy said quietly. "He never knew. But I believe he used some of it to fund your education." The last piece clicked. The private schools, the trips, the stability, even after retirement. "Why reveal this now?" she asked. "I'm old, Lucy. I have no heirs. I recently transferred 20% of my Al Rashid shares to your name." "What?" "No," she stood. "That's too much. It's not charity, it's justice." Khalil stepped in. "I only found out yesterday. It was Farid's decision." "And you're okay with that?" He smiled. "The company will be fine. And now I have a professional excuse to keep you close." Lucy blinked, overwhelmed. "I need time. To think. To breathe." "Take all the time you need," Farid said gently. That night, Khalil walked her to her room again. "No matter what you decide about the shares or the company," he said, "I hope we find a way forward. Together." She studied him, no longer just the hard-edged CEO, but a man stripped of armor. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," he whispered. "Just think." She leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Good night, Khalil." A blush rose on his face. "Good night, Lucy." In her room, sleep took hours to come. When it did, she dreamed of her grandfather again, this time smiling, as if giving quiet approval. 1 month later, back in New York, Lucy had taken a 2-week leave to process everything. She dug through her grandfather's old papers and found another photo, this time with a beautiful young woman beside Ibrahim and Fared. Written on the back, Amamira, Fared, Ibrahim. First office, 1959. So it was all true. She spent her leave between Harvard's archives and the Boston Public Library, finding old clippings about the company, confirming its origin. Then, unexpectedly, Zoe called. "Guess who showed up at the cafe today, looking like a lost puppy? Please don't say Khalil." "Oh, I do say Khalil. He asked if I thought you'd come back. Said he was waiting." Lucy felt her heart tighten. Later that night, she made her decision. The following Monday, Lucy returned to the office. Everything was the same, except a single red rose in a vase on her desk. 12 minutes later, Khalil appeared at her door. "You came back," he said, almost in disbelief. "I have a contract," she replied, cool, but not cold. She handed him the old photo. Everything Fared said was true. He studied it quietly. "You've been doing research." "I always do." "I also spoke to a distant cousin," she added. "She confirmed Amamira. The family just never spoke of her." "What does this all mean for you?" he asked gently. "I'm considering Fared's offer, but on my terms." She stood tall. "I want to start a foundation in Ibrahim and Amamira's name for immigrant students, and I want part of the stock's profits to support it." Khalil's face lit up with admiration. "Done. And I'm not just going to be a passive shareholder. Even better. And," she hesitated, "our dynamic has changed, permanently." "For better or worse?" he asked. "That depends," she said, stepping closer. "On your honesty. Ask me anything. Why did you really hire me? Not the official reason. The real reason." Khalil looked uneasy, but didn't look away. "I saw your photo before we met. Graduation day. You were laughing, wind in your hair, alive. So different from my world. I had to meet you. You hired me because of a picture." "It sounds worse when you say it," he muttered. She tried not to smile. "It is ridiculous, and a little creepy. In my defense, your credentials were perfect. So translation was secondary?" "No," he said seriously. "You shattered every expectation, and I've never met anyone like you." Before she could respond, the phone rang. "Miss Mitchell, Mr. Al-Zahawi is on line 1, said the receptionist. Lucy looked at Khalil. "I'll take it." Fared's cheerful voice came through. "I've found more. Letters from your grandfather. And something else. Something you both need to see. In Dubai." After the call, Khalil raised an eyebrow. "Do you think he's sincere?" "With Fared, who knows?" She smiled. "But I'm curious enough to find out. You'll come?" "With conditions." He smiled. "Of course. No business. Separate hotels, and you tell me more about the real you." He pretended to groan. "That might disappoint you." "Let me be the judge." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then he offered his hand. "Deal, Miss Mitchell." She took it, heart racing. "Deal, Mr. Al-Rashid." And for the first time since they met, Khalil smiled freely. No restraint, no mask. And Lucy smiled too. Together, they were just beginning.